Emerald Beach picnics. And that's how we all visited with each other, is at these picnics. So Marilyn and I met Bob, met both of you, I should say, at one of these picnics, and we just started talking, and we really enjoyed the dinner. And after that, I think it was our first year here, I began to notice this guy on a bicycle. Now, Bob was maybe that tall, and he had this bicycle that a kid would own. I mean, the wheels were about this big in diameter. And the seat was raised right up to here. So was the seat, a stick, and two wheels. And he was putting everybody on. I asked him, I said, well, and I remember being on campus many times, and visitors would come to campus, and they'd be talking to each other. And I always used to walk up to campus in the morning, and Bob would ride by, and visitors that I with Bob on it, you know, and they didn't know what to think, and Bob was just proudly riding along. Another funny story I have about him is his hammock resting. He had a hammock, it was on a tree, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right in front of your cottage. And he'd lie in the hammock day after day after day. And at first, he was always sleeping, or his eyes were shut, but I wasn't sure because it was like this. Only to find out later that he was awake the whole time. If he wanted to speak to you, he'd open his eyes and say hi. If he didn't want to speak to you, just close it. How I know that about Bob is because I walked by one day and his eyes were shut, and I didn't want to wake anybody up, so I just walked on by, and the next thing I know, hi, Jack. So I really wanted to share those stories because he's putting everybody on a lot of the time.
Yes.
He loved to teach, but he was basically a comedian.
Oh, yes. He surprised me all through his life.
He surprised me too. So that's all I have to say, but it's a pleasure being around him.
But I have some footnotes to add. First one, where's Jack? About that bicycle with the wheels about the size of frisbees. I saw him riding it one day, and I stopped and I said, Bob, why don't you get a big bike? He looked at me like I was an idiot, and he said, because it doesn't hurt as much when I fall off of this thing. You know, I saw the logic in that. Oh yes, oh dear. Down in Emerald Beach, Bob would go rowing with Alex Murray, the foot player from London or wherever he was from. And I watch him from my place, and they'd be tooling along very slowly. very slowly. Every time, it was Bob that rode. And they were going along, right along. And he came ashore one time. I said, Bob, why don't you let Alex row sometimes? And he says, he rows too fast and it makes me tired. Okay, I saw the logic in that. Let me see. Oh, yes. Playing tennis. Playing tennis, George. Frequently, Bob and myself and that scamp, John Sargent, who was responsible for a lot of the trouble that we got in. He's always thinking up these things. Anyway, John Sargent and Clyde, we often played tennis, and we had people came in every now and then, played some week, but for some reason that fourth person didn't stay very long. Anyway, I invented that sunball. I did, and I did it deliberately to thwart Bob. And what I would do with the sunball, I would hit it as high up in the air as it go. Well, you know, you watch these catchers in baseball and so forth, you hit the ball up in the air and I just love to see Bob do that now. The trouble is, he played dirty tennis. He did the same thing to me. Anyway, I don't know if any of you were there when Bob received his PhD degree. Anybody here when he got that? It was John Sargent's idea. And we did this down at Emerald Beach. John got academic robes from someplace, and we dressed Bob up and all this stuff. Bob was always a willing participant. And because he was willing, he got the focus of attention most of the time. So we dressed him up in this stuff, and John had some big long dissertation he was reading about this. And the thing I remember as a climax to that PhD presentation, Bob had to walk 3 times around the picnic table with no food on it. Knowing John, I think he thought Bob might pass out, but he didn't. What else have I got here? Oh, yes. Oh, so talk about buffets. Holiday Inn used to have one. We went to that frequently. I can see Bob as if yesterday sitting in front of a plate of shrimp. And he would start with a plate of shrimp on this side. And they were these big ones. That puny little things you get in a can or whatever. You can't even taste the darn things. These big ones. But you had to shell them yourself. And so Bob would sit there for a long time. Finally, you looked over at Bob, and here's the Great Pyramid of Egypt. I'm not kidding you. That's what it looked like. And he was looking around for more. They didn't have any more. Incredible. Let me see here. What else? Oh, yes. All right. I will clarify this Pinestead Reef incident. I was there. What an experience. It was 4 of us. Myself, Bob, Clyde, and I think Mel Larimer was with us. And we walked up the pathway that led to they had big glass windows there. And we were walking up there, and I hope you can see this. This is the way the evening started for the people inside. This is the way it ended. And I'll tell you why. We sat at a table very close to the roast beef. It was a huge thing. And I know I went back 4 times. I was always interested in Bob's ability to consume food. He went back 6 times. I did, yeah, I counted them. 6 times. And they had a fellow, you didn't help yourself, they had a fellow with a big knife cutting it off. And when we first went there, he smiled. And little by little, that smile changed to what you just saw a moment ago. We finally left. And everybody was happy about that, who ran the place. And we made a terrible mistake. We said, we're coming back next week. Now this is the truth. I was there. We came walking up that walkway. They saw us coming and they locked the door. They locked the door. And we stood outside. All right, we're never coming back here again. What a night that was. Bob, oh well, I'll come back to that. Let me see here. I know. The Order Society is mentioned. I started that too. Bob was a charter member. He was appointed by me as ambassador at large. And I said, Bob, you can be the ambassador at large and eat as much as you want. Emphasis on the large. And Bob said, fine, I will have all my meetings at a buffet. Because if we don't do any good business, I'll at least get a good dinner out of it. Let me see here, yes. I have the lyrics to the Yoidi anthem, but I'm not going to read those. More or less this explains the group. All right. Some of you know that I'm writing a novel. First one, last one, let me tell you, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a nice time, and I have my wife to thank for keeping my proverbial nose to the grindstone. But in that novel, there is a character named Bob Resnick. And he is a hero. If you buy the novel, if I ever finish it, you'll see. He does wonderful things in that novel. All right. At the end of the novel, here's what I wrote, the very last page. Very last page, in memoriam, Bob Resnick, an accomplished musician, an extraordinary tennis player, an expert riding of mini bikes, a gourmet beyond compare, an impressive rower of boats, a loving husband, a proud father, a doted grandfather, a joy to be with, a maker of memories, a treasured friend. When I think about Bob, just the other day, I remembered a poem written by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who was a poet during the Victorian age. Now, you know the Victorians were very sentimental people, and this was a sentimental poem. I'm going to read just a part of it as my paraphrase of it. Remember me when I have gone away, our happy nights, each happy day. Remember all the friends we had. Remember me. No tears, be glad. Remember me with joy, not sorrow. Remember me. We'll meet again tomorrow.